And we're very pleased to have with us today, Jerry Gillespie. Jerry is with Microsoft, who is one of our business partners at AESA. We've had several sessions that Jerry has been a part of and led for us, and it's always very well received by our members. And Jerry, we're so appreciative again of you being here with us today. I know it'll be another good session. And at this time, I want to give you as good as I know this is going to be today on Microsoft Forms. I want to turn it over to you so that we can get started as soon as we can with Microsoft. And thank you, Jerry, for being with us. And Renan Frills, I know you're behind the scenes helping us over. I can see you as well. Thank you. And this time, Jerry, I'll turn it over to you.
Amazing, awesome, so happy to be here. And this is honestly, I appreciate and appreciate the partnership that we do have, and enjoy working with all that are involved here. I'm so glad to be here. I think, are we going to actually record this session also? Is this a session we're going to record? I always put a precursor. That means that if we're recording this session, so that you know out there that you forever will be part of the show. So if your cameras and that are on, which is fine, but I always like to let people know that too when we start recording this session. So yes, my name is Jerry Gillespie. I am with the Microsoft EDU engagement team. And today we are going to be talking about Microsoft Forms and how to get in, gather information, and put that together for you. We're going to talk about an introduction to forms, creating forms, sharing and collaborating using forms, managing forms, and then I put down collecting data, because I want to talk about, even in with your data, how to use those different kind of question types that are available within forms. We're going to just dive in deep in there. I am going to, and we are going to cover a lot of information here in our session here. I want to make sure you should be able to hear me, of course, looking for those 3 ellipses. If you see my mouth moving right now and not hearing anything, you want to check your device settings to make sure that you are able to see me. But before we get started too, I want to talk about just a couple of norms here. Your time is valuable, so please try and follow along. Ask questions. We have on our chat side, if you see that chat feature in there, you should have access. If not, it could be the way that we signed in here, but please use the chat session there. I know Renan is here helping me. She's also from Microsoft. That's going to be here. Renan, you are here, right?
I am here.
Awesome. So she's here. She can help monitor that chat area if we have questions. We can come off mute and ask questions as we go through. If you do not have a question right now or that, please keep your mics muted so that everybody can hear. And then also enjoy the journey. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of information here. I have this resource here, this PowerPoint that I'm going to share and send on, that you can have. It's going to have links to a lot of these kind of videos and help and that too as we go through here. So know that you have that support. And then also you can reach out to us. You can come and find, these are different ways that you can reach out to me and ask further questions. But I'm going to go ahead and dive into today, because we've got a lot that we're going to cover. Like I said, the focus today is that basic introduction navigation of Microsoft Forms. And here is, like I said, I'm going to be sending on this resource so you have access to this. So let's get started. So I always start my day with Office.com. And what Office.com is going to do is that will bring up, when you come to Office.com, and I know you can even access now if you're using Edge, you're able to access your applications. But I enjoy being able to have this dashboard of my apps and what I want to use. So right now I can see these are the area, I'm in my demo tenant, and I can see here on this side, if I come to an area where it's all apps, what I'm looking for in my 365 is I want to see the apps that I have. Now I am in Microsoft, and this is my demo account. So I have a lot of apps that you may not have there. However, what I can see is I'm able to get to my applications that I have, and I'm going to be looking for Forms, so I can get to Microsoft Forms. If you go to Microsoft Forms and look on the web in there and be able to sign in, this is where we really want to come to, is this Microsoft Forms. This is the landing page I want everybody to be on right now. I'm actually going to kind of extend my screen. It's just easier for people to be able to see. And as you can see, I have a lot of different forms that I use, especially in different training sessions and things that I've done in working. with forms. So let's first get a layout of what we have in forms. If I start over here with this form here, I can actually search for a title or an owner name. So if I want to, as far as an organization, and there's been a lot of feature requests with forms and that too about the organization of forms, because generally when you create a form, this is what it looks like. It's going to pull up your most recent form that you used most recently. So those are going to come to the top. So if you're looking for a that you used before, maybe previously and a while ago, it's going to be, might be buried a little bit. So what Microsoft Forms is it's an actual way to gather data and gather information. It's going to create more of like a database. It's going to collect information that's going to become a Microsoft Excel sheet. We're going to talk about that. But it's just a survey tool that's going to allow you to create and produce surveys. But when you're looking for a certain survey, this is where you're going to want to be able to use that search and not if you're trying to find a form maybe that you created before. So that's what that search form is. I know it's probably going to come up a question about how to organize. Like I said, that's been a request that I know Microsoft is taking in. But for right now, that's how you're really going to want to be able to locate some forms that maybe you've already created before. You can see here, if I come over to my forms, these are forms that I actually own, that I've created. This is my bucket of forms that I have created, and these are the surveys that I've put together. Shared with me are any forms, and unfortunately I don't have any forms shared with me in this collaboration space, but these are these forms that are going to be created that I'm working with somebody else. They are something that somebody might have created and then gave me permission, and I'm actually able to now come in and edit and be able to work with that form. I can go ahead and I can change the responses, as not the responses, but I can change the survey questions. I'm able to see the data. I have access to that information in that shared with me area. And then we have our group forms. Now, group forms are actually essentially those forms that were created within teams. So if you are in Teams and actually create a form, like you have that option to create a form within a team, they're going to be located in your group forms. And when you can see recent group forms are going to come up first. I'm in group forms. I've got here, these are kind of recent group forms. If I actually come here and pull this caret, I can see now, and what I've done is I've just put the extender where it said recent group forms. If I select that, I'm going to see all of my different groups that I have access to. And then those are where I'm going to find those forms that maybe were created within that team. So for example, if you have a team and you've created forms within that team and you want to be able to access it, that's where you're going to find it, is in these group forms. Today, we're pretty much going to stay in this form area because we're going to create a form that's there. So that's the layout of forms. And these are actually, each one of these boxes you see, these tiles, are my forms. And I can see right away, I can see the name of the form. I can see how many responses are in the form here. That's already telling me some information about that form. Some of these that you're seeing on here, these little right here, there's an icon in here I want to point out. Those are actually created from forms from polls that were inside of my team. So now as these features coming out, there's a new feature that's coming out in Teams where you can actually create a poll within a team. And that's where the information is going to be stored. So if I created a poll in a team, so in a posting of a team, and what I mean by that here, because I want to make sure we're here. If I, in my teams that I've here, when I'm in a team, I actually have the option to create a poll within a team. That is where that's going to show up. So if I'm in a team and I'm in a posting, and what I mean by the post is that if I'm going to use this practice team. If I'm in here and I want to create a post here and I create a poll, that is where I'm going to find it, is in my forms. And I can tell right here by this icon, those are the areas where I created the poll. Okay, and then I have, of course, the names of my forms. Okay, just the layout there. I'm going to stop for a second, see if any questions about that. Just the layout of forms.
I haven't seen any in the chat, but feel free, anybody, if you have questions, to post them in there and we'll make sure we address them.
Or even raise your hand too. Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to jump in. We're going to actually create a new form. And I'm going to stay on. You can use forms to create quizzes. Like teachers could be able to use this and create a quiz. I'm really going to stay just on the form side, which is more of that data gathering survey tool for this training. But there is that option. It works very similar. However, your question types are going to differ because you can actually add in questions that you might use in an educational instructional setting. But for here, I'm going to actually just stick to creating a new form. And so just so you know, I went back here, I put new form, and it's going to bring me into the actual form that I can create. So as when we come into here, just to get the lay of the land of where we're now looking at in this new form, is we have here our form that's here. It's our untitled form. The reason there's a 2 there is because that means that I have an untitled form in my form somewhere else. So it's just letting me know it's the second untitled form that I have here. If I come over to this far right-hand side, those 3 ellipses, of course, these 3 ellipses that we have are where I'm going to be able to get to my settings. There's a multilingual area in here. So for example, if I wanted to, with the survey that I know that I'm going to be sending this survey out, I might have to want to be able to add additional languages to the people that are going to be using the survey. So when they take the survey, they actually will have the ability or the option to choose or to check their own language. So I can add in a language here. So like if I wanted to add German and I wanted to add Spanish, let's do Indonesian. Okay, I can come in. I could add different languages here in the form. I'm just going to pick one. Okay, so I have different languages that I can come in my form. So where I am located here, I can do settings, I can do multilingual, I can even print the form. So when I'm done, maybe I want a hard copy. So maybe I've got a survey, like right now I'm working with a lot of learning organizations and districts trying to gather data about who has devices, who has access to internet. If you don't have a device or access to the internet, it's hard to fill out a digital form. So you actually have an ability to print the form also and send that out. So you have a hard copy of the form that's there also. And then of course feedback in that too. But those are those 3 ellipses that always mean we're in Microsoft. The settings are there, but we're going to come back to settings. Let's create a form, we'll come back. But I wanted to make sure you understood where that was. The sharing feature over here too is how we're going to actually share this feature and this form, and we're going to come back and talk about that also. The theme is going to be the way the form looks, and as we build our questions, we're going to come back to that information too. And then preview, that's what we're going to use a lot. We're going to actually go back and forth between preview as we're creating our form because we want to see what the form looks like. Okay, our preview is going to give us what the form is going to look like on the other side. So we're going to actually be coming back and forth between that preview area in there. So I want to make sure you knew where those different sections were. All right. So I'm going to come back here, and the first thing we're going to start with is we're going to title our form. So I might too, and I just gave you an example, I might be gathering information on, access, technology access. This is something right now that I was helping, okay? And I have here. I will find that question out. A different version, online version, and send and not share. This is different between version or platform. I will find out. Great question. There's a question in the chat about the language feature and where it's available, if it's education or enterprise, and I will find out here. Because the version I'm using right now is in the education space, so we're here. So I will also find out too. So those questions. Thanks, Renan, who's helping me with that. If I'm in here in this form, and I'm going to label this, anywhere you see this icon right here, this means that I can insert an image. So a lot of times with here, we may want to insert an image. I can either use one from my OneDrive, I can upload, right, a different image device, or I can do a Bing image search. Now, when you do a Bing image search here, you always want to think about, of course, licensing, Creative Commons, those kinds of things. So, but if you're going to be doing that, I want to put that out. And you also have to look at what kind of file or type size works here. So I always try to think of those. So I'm going to put in here technology and do a search here. I've got my Creative Commons here, box select. Let's see if this one will work here. Image, add, and see if it will support it. Might be too high. Sometimes it does this, and depending on my internet, no, worked fine there. All right, so now I have this image here. I have the ability here to put alternative text to make sure, like if I need to add alternative text for accessibility features, I'm going to point that out. There's the little letters here that are there. I'm going to actually put up my Zoom just to make this show up a little bit better for you. Okay. So right here, I can actually come in and I can see on that image here. If I click here on that image, those little letters, those little letters will appear there. I can put alternative text for screen readers, so to help with those accessibility features. If I didn't like that picture and I wanted to do another one, I would delete it and be able to start that all over again, right? Of what I wanted to be able to use. So this is now the title of my form. I then can come into enter description, and this is going to tell what the form is about. All right, so here I might put in the information like please respond to the following questions, right? And now I can go ahead and I can add some questions. Let's zoom back out a little bit so you can see. That's better. I'm going to add some questions to my form so I can see here. Now I have some choices. Come here. When I add this question bank here, I have some choices. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to put add new in here just so you're following along here. If I hit add new, I have some choices of what I may want to do. Okay, and now let's just take a second and review these kind of options that I have as far as my choice options. When I come through here, I of course have my multiple choice. I can ask a question where they can select something. I can choose a question where they're entering information like a text, and I can even check, add the size of that text, meaning if it's just maybe a few words that they're going to be entering, or maybe something that's longer. I can add a rating, like a rating scale, that too. And we're gonna actually play with a lot of these questions. We're gonna insert them there. I can use a date where maybe I want them to select a date of the event or something that happened here. This little extender caret option, when I put that down, I have some more options that I can put in. I have a ranking, so I have something that I can put in sequence of order. I can rank things like, please let us know your top choice for training, and you can actually rank them and people can put them in order. You can create a Likert scale, so you can go through and ask questions about, always, sometimes, and create that scale that has both sides of that information. You can even insert a file upload. So for example, when we had a survey of this with information, this was one way our counselors were using this to gather information from parents. Even sounds like people that needed to gather kind of information in that and file upload, you can actually insert a question where people are able to upload documents that you might be able to get as far as your process. You can have that file upload. And then of course you have this net promoter scale. So like on a scale of 1 to 10. Right here. So you have these different types of questionings that you can put into your form. I want here to put here because I'm going to actually add a section. So what sections do it's a great way when you add a section is going to actually add in sections of questions. So you might have section for demographics, and then a question for maybe more information about if you wanted to know here about location or air barriers in the way. Going into being able to do section here on there. So when you have this and you're going through on this section, you want to be able to come in and add in a section, and that's going to break off your form. So it's going to have where people are actually adding questions. So for example, if I'm adding in a section, I can put in demographics and be able to have that area there too. Okay, I can see here this picture again. I've got insert media. That means I could add a picture if I wanted to. That's completely, if something that applied to that demographics, I'm not going to include it right here, but anytime I see that icon, I can go ahead and add a picture to a question. I can put in this description, please complete information below. Okay. And then we can again, I've got my add new box. Okay, so what I did there is I created and added a section in that area. When I hit add new now, so something that I might want in demographics, let's start with a multiple choice question. So when I create this question here, there might be something that I might want to know, I don't know, area of support. This might be something where I want them to go ahead and select. When you're gathering data, just a point, just something in practice, whenever I had to do surveys, the most of the times that I could, or as often as I could actually have them choose a multiple choice area, is when I would try and integrate these types of questions because it helped with the data. When you're having to add in text, and which sometimes we do, like if you need an email address, if you need a name, if you need a phone number, of course that's that text area where you can have them kind of enter in their information. You're just leaving room open for, of course, human error about typos or things to happen. So as many questions when you're gathering data and you're trying to get information that you can put in, as far as even having multiple choice or your selection, things that they're just clicking or moving, is going to help you with the data as far as accuracy too. That's always just something in practice I always talk about when people are creating more of these forms. So I put in here my question. I now have my options for my questions. So I can put in, I would put in my different area, 1 here. I can put in area 2. When it comes to here, if I want to add another option, I can add option. It's going to let me. Area 3. Okay. And then add other option. That's actually going to put that other space. So maybe I want them to type something in for me. I can add that other option. When I come over these selections, you can see this little brick that's following along in forms with me. So if we come in, I can actually move those rotations. So if I'm going to be using this and I want to come into area 1, area 2 or 3, that's here, I can actually move my questions or orders around. So especially if you're looking at like creating something and you wanted to know about time, I've done this before. You've put time slots in where you put 10 to 11, 11:30 here, you put the slots in and then you realize they're out of order. This is where you would be able to move those back into whatever order that you want to in those questions. I can also, as you come over and see that little trash can appear, I could delete an option. So that's how you're going to manage those options within there that are there. If I know that I'm going to have another multiple choice question, I could even copy these questions, or if I just do not like this question at all, I want to start over, that trash can up here is always going to be your delete. That trash can there is always going to be anywhere in the program is going to mean that you're going to be deleting something. These toggles at the bottom here, I want to review here, multiple answers. That means that I might have put a question here that says, please pick 3 of your top choices, or select all that apply, right? If you want them to have multiple answers, this is where you're going to have to toggle over. This is where I can tell you, when you're creating your form, if you forget to move this toggle and you're asking them for multiple answers. So for example, if you want them to select all the days that are available, so if you've got the days of the week, Monday through Friday here, and you want them to select all the days that might be applicable, that they're open, this is where I've seen people, and even including myself, forget to move over this toggle, and then they can only select one answer. Because if it's not put on multiple answers, they're only going to be able to select one answer. So you have to make sure that that's toggled over if you're going to have those multiple answer type of questions. And then the required, if this is not an area, like if this is a question that you don't require, they can actually skip it. If you toggle required here, that means that they're not going to be able to submit the form without you actually being able to come in on that required. If having that required toggle is going to force them to answer that question, they're not going to be able to submit. It's going to come back and say, hey, you missed these questions. So if there's questions on here that you definitely want to get information from, that's where you're going to want to toggle in that required. And then with Microsoft, we always have these 3 ellipses here. So this is where I have some options here too now, and going through as far as being able, what I can do, I can add in a subtitle, which is going to give me more information here. And yes, I am in the EDU version. So if you're seeing some different options that are here between enterprise, you still can be able to use some of these kind of features, and I can take back even feedback between these if you'd like to see an enterprise. But I am in the demo tenant for the EDU, so these are options that are here. But we can go back and look and see if there are different versions here. I have a drop down area where I am, but that means that when they look down, they'll actually have a drop down feature. But this is just depending on what you have and the addition that you have or the form that you're using, these 3 dots are going to give you the extra additions to that question that you can add in, like this subtitle. If you wanted to explain more about the question, that's what that subtitle is going to be about. If you're going to explain more about that question that you just asked, that's where you're going to be able to get to that subtitle, add that. And then branching. I can actually branch to another question depending on how you use that branching. Depending on the answer of this question, I can actually send them somewhere in the survey. So for example, if they had chosen area 1, area 2, we'll put some branching in, and I'll show you what that looks like after we add some questions here. So after we ask questions in here, because I'm going to add branching, I need to add my questions first. So right now I'm going to hit back because I don't have all of my questions in there, but I'm going to show you what branching is. And that's, again, how we got to that was these 3 ellipses, and we're going to add some branching into our form, which is going to allow us some flexibility to send people to different questions. So now that I know, okay, I'm looking at area 1 and 2 of support, I'm going to actually add new here and come over. I've got, again, my choices and questions. I'm going to come over to, let me make this so I can move it up here. I'm going to add in another section. I'm going to add in another section to this form. And the reason why is because now I might want to know if they're area 1, area 2, and then I want them to maybe go somewhere else in my form. Okay, so for example, if this is section 2, I'm going to say now I'm going to get into access information. Okay, and then might be more of a description of what this is, right? I'm just going to, this is where I would add information. So let me explain. I'm going to add in a different kind of questions. We've talked about multiple choice. I'm actually going to put in a text question here, and maybe I want to know their email address or contact information there. This is now that I've got this text question, I can now either put in a long answer or the short answer. So this is an email, so I've got enough room to be able to go in and have that just one line, and it has to do with how many lines of information you think people are going to add. So if it's just one line like an email, if it's just a name, you can have this area where you can just have this shorter version. But if it's something that's going to be more of a longer answer, I can put long answer, and it's going to allow them to have multiple lines of response. So anytime you're trying to get feedback, so say like, is there any other information you'd like me to know? I'm going to actually add in a long answer to this so they have that kind of feedback to be able to put that information in. Again, looking at here with required. Okay, if I want to have that information required. Here, and then if I go through here, and then of course I have more settings. These are also those more kind of settings here that I have here that I am able to add in. Like the subtitle, again, is going to be able to explain information. I don't really need a subtitle with an email though, so I'm not going to put that there. But that's the type of text question. So that's a text question you have. I don't need a long answer, like I said, for my short here. I do want it required. And then I'm going to go ahead and let's see here. Maybe I'm going to have a rating. Okay, so this is a question where I can actually put in levels between, if I wanted different levels here. Maybe I'll have 4 levels. I could do numbers here. And then I could put in question here of how reliable is your service? Just making up questions here. Gotta come down. And then if I add in here, this is a place where I'm going to come to my ellipses down here where I have more settings for this question. I might put in a subtitle because I want to explain what I mean. One being, how reliable is your service from 1 to 4. And then if I wanted to explain here, what my levels were there, I could actually come here and explain that if I wanted to do that here. Is there a way to add a comment field to that? I will come back and find out about that, and I'll come back to your question and see if I can put that in there. So as we go through and we're looking at reliable in your service from 1 to 4, and I want to enter in information here, like choose from, 1 is going to be excellent, 2 here. These are just different levels of people that you've ever kind of question that you want to be able to put in. Again, you have up to these various different levels that you want to pick here. And then add in that information, 1 being outstanding. If I can type today. And 3 being horrible or not reliable. And then they're able to actually choose that number there in that system if you wanted to be able to do that. But there is a rating question here that might even work better here. But this is just something where you are able to add in that. If you wanted to too, you can put stars. How many stars do you want to give it, right? You have that option to be able to choose that there. Maybe I want to copy, if I wanted to copy that question and actually change the name, I could actually do that too. So maybe I wanted to say, I want to copy that question. I hit the copy, you can see that. It's going to take that question exactly as it was. And it's going to take on the attributes of it. It's going to make it the same kind of question. It's going to make it required because this first question was required. But then maybe I want to say, how reliable was your service a year ago? Maybe I want to ask something. Is your service from 1 to 4 a year ago? Or actually, it's a 3 now. A year ago. Okay. I can come back in here and I want to fix this question because I have a 3. There. Now that's how I can use that copy function. I can actually copy that question. So maybe I figure, hey, I have these questions here and I asked about how your system was. Maybe I want to go actually in order. So I want this question to go before. If I'm asking about their service a year ago, I probably want that question to come first. I can use these arrows actually to move questions up. So I can actually switch and move down depending on where you want that question. You're going to use these arrows to toggle up, and down where you want that question to be. So now I have my email, how reliable was my service, and then I've gone my year ago, I have my questions here. Okay, anytime I'm on a question, I get that add new box. That's like if I decided, hey, I've asked for their email, but I didn't ask for their name. So now I realize I've got this information, I've got their email, but I didn't even ask for their name yet. So I might want a name if I'm going to get a hold of them here, right? Again, I don't need a long answer. And then if I look at that form, I again have the ability to move this question up or down because of the order that I want to have it in. So I'm going to stop there a second and let me come back. Question about, is there a way to add a comment field at the end of a question? So if you're talking about you want them, Anne, can you explain a little bit more what kind of question, like what you're trying to do in the question?
Yeah, I've had surveys where, we'll ask, I don't know, rate the conference from, or this breakout session from 1 to 4. And then like right after, so they rate it and then a comment about why they're rating it that way.
Yes.
Right within the question. I've had to just add a new question.
Yes.
So it looks separate, It
is. Yes, it does do that. So, but you can do that with, and you can do that kind of there where it does that with branching too, where if they say that that's simple, and I'm going to add branching right now. So this might be something that's useful that I've used this actually for, when I wanted to get kind of feedback on training sessions or that too. And that's where this, now that we have actual questions here, we can come in and show what branching is going to happen. So, anywhere that you have a question, you have the option of something called branching. And what branching means, literally, if we think of a tree, we can actually send it off to another area. So we're going to take Anne's question. So let's say here, if we had, how reliable was your service from 1 to 3 years ago? And then you wanted more information about that. I could actually come down and add a new question here. I'm going to add a text and say, please explain your answer, however you wanted to do that, right? So as soon as they're here, and now this is an example of an area where I'm going to go ahead and turn the subtitle off. I could in the subtitle put the question again, just to remind them. But this is an area I'm going to put a long answer because they may want to write some more, they probably want to give more information about what their explanation of that too. So now I've got this question. So for example, if I came here and how reliable was your service, I'm going to come here. I can actually come to the 3 dots in here. I'm in that first question. I've gone back to my question about my service 3 years ago. So if they said, it was poor last, before, I can come in and I can hit this add branching. And what it's going to do is it's going to tell me, so if they select 1, like if they come back on here in my question, if I'm in here and they select, if they select, for example, this area, I'm going to want them to go to please explain their answer. Okay, and it's going to actually have them jump into that area. Now, this is going to be like after they respond to this question, it's going to just jump them straight into that. So every time they put in a response to that too, it's going to be able to change them back to that answer, to that request. So that's one way of doing that. So when they take that form or they come in, they're able to do that. If I really wanted to also, I could come in and add in those kind of questions before. I'm going to actually add in a question now about, instead, we had this rating here. I'm going to add a question in about this net promoter skill like this. So how likely you recommend this to a friend or colleague? Like this is something right here, not likely at all or likely here, right? Question. And that's something that we hear. So how likely are you to recommend this session, right? Or I'm going to put here this service because we're talking about this service to a friend or colleague here. If I'm having that too and I want to be able to, this is another question that I may want to add branching to, right? So if I've got that question here and I've got and I'm asking this question here, where do I want them to go next? I want them to go to, again, another question I might have is, please explain your answer. Okay, so that's another way that, so when they take this form, it has them be able to go back to those answers. Now, here's the only thing, if you're going to do that, you have to have those optional, you're going to want to have multiple questions like this to go back to. So for example, this question 7, that I have is please explain your answer. This is what I've done before is I just sat and actually copied that question because I've got please explain your answer. Please explain your answer here. So when I come through and I use those branching, I now can come through. I've already used branching on this question that I have here, right? I can come here and come on question 5 now, like how reliable is your service? I'm going to use that branching again. And I'm able to see now right here, here's question 4. Once they answer question 4, it's going to go to please explain their answer. I'm going to come to question 5 here. Okay. I want them to please explain their answer. It's going to go to 8, right? When I come to question 6, like how likely are you to recommend this service to a friend or colleague? I'm going to have it go to, again, I want their answer. I'm going to have them go to please explain your answer. So now when they take this survey, I can have them go and actually do that part of the survey that's in there. It's going to actually have them come to that part of that survey and then go back. At the end, of course, there are other sections then you can, of course, send them to. So for example, if they finish question 7, where do I want them to go next? Now, this is where I'm going to be honest with you. Now, I know going through here is when you're thinking about branching, and I think it's a great name to call it branching because I have done this myself. I've taken out a piece of paper and really thought about where I want people to go in the flow of the information. So for example, if I'm having them go through and explain their information or go through, where do I want them to go to next? Now you could just put that question back and forth, but I wanted to show you branching in this page because I honestly, a great way to do this and I want to bring this out. Those are the different types of question types that you can be able to use. But if you're going to be able to come in here, I want to show you about the multiple choice section. So multiple choice, if I was going to be rating this, so for example, Anne just talked about in her session right here, she was just talking about if she was going to be able to use this like for a conference setting. I'm going to show you a trick that I used. I actually use multiple choice for these kinds, even though it's a rating and those are the type of questions you have, like you could rate this and let people know. When you use a multiple choice type question, so I'm going to put here, how would you rate this session? I start putting in options here, excellent. Automatically, it's going to kick in, and you can see I have these options where it's going to give me some help, like what I want to give as far as those options. I can go good, I can go fair, I can go average, and I can go, you know, kind of below average. And those could be the ones. As you see, as I'm putting in those kind of answers, I can see it's going to give me even more of that information here. So maybe I'm like, want something to be in here instead of good, I might want to use above average. I can then move that up here to where I want to be in here and take out this good. And now I have my rating scales that are here, okay, for my question. Now that when I do that, I don't want multiple answers because I want them to choose. But this is something like example, like the example that Anne gave us. Now when I go to branching, if I want to be able to do this, I can branch here and add branching, and I want to show you the difference. So now every time, depending on what they asked, I can have them go to that section. So for example, if they said it was excellent, I'm glad they're happy. I'm glad it's excellent. I don't, if I want to, maybe it's a time you don't want to collect a comment. But if they said below average, hey, wait a minute, I want to know what happened. I can actually come in here, and that's where you could put in more like, please explain your answer kind of response. So really when you're trying to have that, it's really thinking and understanding how you want to be able to use those questions next, because you can actually run them even through a section as they go through that information. And did that kind of make sense to how to use that piece?
Yeah, yep, that was very helpful. Thank you.
Yes. So that way, if you come through and then you go to those questions, they're actually going to read off of what you said. And that gives you more choice when you want to do that. And you can see when I did branching here, I didn't have that level of being able to break that down. So I always tell people, if you're going to want more information exactly like that, you're better off doing it like a multiple choice and then having select, and then you can put the branching into that question that's there. I want to add branching here. I'm going to add another section 3. So here we go. So I've got all these questions here, and you realize, hey, this is a lot of information. Like, I want to break this up. You could actually add a section anywhere you want in here. So I could come in and I could select on question 5 and say, you know, this is where I'm going to break. I'm going to break it up here. I can still come to add new. I'm going to come through here, and I can come down to section. And I can add in that section here now. Now I put that break. It's going to put a break in my form. Okay, so break in form. And I can also add that explanation. So now I've got that section 3. I've got section 2. I have my section 1 that I come in here. But this is where I was going. That's where it's also going to help you with that branching section 2. Because now not only can you branch from here, like if I wanted to, I'm back on that question 1 about area of support. And again, where am I going to go? I'm going to go to my ellipses. That's what's going to let me have those options with that question. I'm going to click on that to get more. I'm going to add here. I can also come up, not only there, I can actually go to these questions. So for example, if they said area 1, I want them to jump to section 2. If they said area 2, I'm going to have them go ahead and go to section 3. If they selected other, I can even put another choice and have them go to the next. Or if they selected other, maybe I just want them to end a form. I want them to be done. Okay, so I'm going to go back now here. We've got our form. We've got some questions in here. I want to see what the flow, like what does it look like with this form, these questions I have in here. This is where I can actually come over to preview. And now I can see in the computer what it looks like. I can click on mobile what it looks like. That's what it's going to look like on a phone. I can see what it looks like in the computer, and I can see those 2 different views. But I've got this one question because I, of course, have it broken off in sections. When I select area 1, what happens? Oh, I'm automatically in area 2, right, to go through that form. Okay, so that's what I wanted it to happen. What happens when I hit area 2? Oops, I'm going to go to preview. What happens when I hit area 2? Okay, it brought me to section 3. That's what I wanted it to do. So I have those questions. So then if I wanted to go back and preview, now what happens so like if I hit other, right? If I hit other, I'm in area 4. Hit submit. Oh, well, I didn't really want information from area 4, so I can even bring them to the end of form. So that's something where you can actually use that branching to be able to go back and forth. And be able to use that branching. It becomes useful so that you're also not wasting the people on your other side. You know how many times we've taken a survey and we've gone through and it's just really not even applicable to us. There's not any questions that even apply to me. That's a way to go ahead and help even the gathering the data on the other side to narrow down so that you keep your interested party, like you keep their interest so that they will give your data. So using branching and getting them into your form, like where you want them in the pockets of that, is going to also help you as you go through so that you're getting that data that you want that's so useful in that information. So as we go through here, I'm going to add new. I'm going to just show what these different look like. Date, I can actually have them in a question, have to put in a format of a date that's here. And so it's going to require them to put in a date. So if I wanted an incident, this is the time I've only used it in practice. I've talked about like incident date or event date. This might be something, you know, what event date are you trying to determine? Again, it can add branching. That's what a date looks like. We've already looked at let me show a ranking. So this is a ranking. Let me make sure I did a ranking question. Yes. Add new. I'm going to put in ranking question. Okay. So now when I have here in a question, I might want to say, you know, please put in order the options, right? In order. And then now what's going to happen, they have these options and they can go through that. But what that's going to look like, you can see, they can actually drag or drop because that's what it's going to look like. It's not a multiple choice. They're going to be able to put that in order. And so in preview, because I've got my steps back. In preview mode, we'll go back and look. They can actually drag and drop those orders and put them in order and what that looks like there in that order. Of that. Let me see what other question I want to be able to add to because we've gone through them. I want to make sure you've seen them all. And then, of course, if it comes with that file upload, Likert is another one too. It's just like if you wanted to know like easily this option, if you've got multiple options in that you want to collect. I just want to make sure people understood being able to use. Yes, the ranking question is a great way to get prioritizing information. So for example, if you were going to rate a session or anything that you're going to be doing or trying to get information, which one is most so much important on that too. So as we come through, as we got here, we've got that. I want to talk about, before we look at our theme and then we'll look at our whole form, I want to talk about theme for a second. What the theme is that's going to help you also organize your forms too. I use it as an organization method. So for example, maybe all of my data responses are purple. All of my information to have to do with something with tracking is a blue. I can even add in more fun kind of backgrounds here that are here. I can hit that and be able to customize my background. This is something I do often. I just actually look up backgrounds. And I'll show you how I got there again. I'm in theme. Okay. I've gone through these different themes. I've hit this plus sign right here, which is going to take me to this area where I can add in my own response. I type in backgrounds. And have been able to use. So now my backgrounds are those clouds. And maybe I have some kind of a logo or something that I want to upload there, but I can actually choose my background theme. So now I want to look at what this looks like. So let's see what it looks. We have our language up here where I can pick what language I'm going to be saying this in, doing this in. I'm going to hit area 2, so I want to see what these questions look like. I can see like my Likert question here. I can see how I rated this session here. Average, above. Here I've already there. Now I wanted to see, please order. Here is my order question. So we've got our event date. It's going to give me a date to pick here. Okay, this is my date question that I added in. Here is my order question. So for example, I can actually put these in order. So maybe I wanted option 3 was my favorite. I'm going to move it here. And then I liked option 1 and option 2. So I can actually rank these from an order from like 1 to, put these in order from 1 to 10. Your top rated sessions you like to see next year. If we were supporting Anne with her conference themes, right? So what are the sessions you would like to see that were missing? Put your top order. This is what they're going to be able to see. They're going to see that, be able to move those or put those out in order. I also want you to see what pops up when I come to that question. You're going to see the icon, the list that we have here, which is that icon to be able to use that immersive reader option. So you have that information that's also built into this here. So we have our form. We've created our form. The next thing I want to talk about is the settings. We want to come back to a settings in here. I'm going to go back to we've talked about multilingual. I'm going to come back to these 3 dots in here, and I want to come into the settings. Now, this is going to be very important for our settings because this is how it is. It's how we want to be able to have something come out or be able to share our form. So if I'm going to have somebody share this form and it's going to be out in the public, I'm going to have anyone with a link can respond. I have to be able to do that. Okay, I have to have anybody with a link. If you're going to have that do that, you're going to want to make sure if you can come back and enter, you want to make sure people have the information in their name, like in the name as far as it's going in there, of being able to fill that in. Option for responses. I also may want to put on a start date. Maybe I don't want to start collecting information until today, at 3, like at 2:30 today. Okay. I may want to have an end date to this. I want to close this. This is closing out so the 21st. And I want to have, 2:45 will work. Okay. Showing progress bar. That's going to give people on the other side only if they have sections. So if they have sections, they can see the progress bar. I can even customize my thank you message. Thank you for your feedback. Here. And then also I want to talk about these notifications. Let me pull this up more so that you can see here. Okay, I can of course set that end date, but I want to talk about point out notifications. This send email to receipt respondents right here is not it's not of options, not available because I'm using an anyone link. I want anyone to be able to go into there in that. Get email notification of each response. That's going to be a response to me. So every time something's been responded, I can go ahead and turn this on. Now I'll give you a hint. When I'm getting information in here and I'm collecting information and I know it's going to be a large amount of people, I do not click that box so that my Outlook does not get crazy. But you can come back and then you can rechange the setting as you're starting to get close. So for example, if I'm getting close to maybe a cutoff amount, like I only want 50 people and I'm getting close, I'm going to want an email, come back and change this email notification every single time I get a response so that I'm kind of every time something happens. I also have a track of who's come in. I can see that and I've got that tracking of when to come in and maybe turn this form off because as I come through here and I look at my form in my settings, I also have the option here to turn off, no longer accept this response anymore. And then I could actually say, sorry, we are no longer accepting. Okay. And these are all in our setting areas. So like that's at accept responses. I get close to the end. I've got an email notification saying, hey, getting close. I've turned that on. I now want to come in and actually turn the link off. And then you can have that message and put that message in there for people to have that. And that is in your settings area. So this is really talking about how the settings of the form when it's delivered and who can come to it. Now we've got this form. How do we get out? How do we get it to people? How do we share it, right? So we've got some ways, and I'm going to in the share icon right here up here. I have already anyone with a link can respond. And I have 2 options. I can have only the people in my organization, which means in your actual org that you have, or anyone with a link. Usually I'm using anyone with a link because I'm trying to get outside information. That's usually the kind of link I'm using. I now have a link here that I can copy because if I look down here, I can use a link that I can use as a hyperlink to insert somewhere. So I have a link to the form. I actually can also create a QR code. Now, I used to use this actually with buildings and administrators, and this might be a kind of a tip that you can share with buildings that you support. If they need information out, like if they have parking lots or parking lanes, like a lot of times we see drive-through kind of examples lately. If you put a QR code and they have their cell phone or that, they can actually QR code that and then take your form. We used to collect a lot of data from parents sitting in pickup lines out in schools. This way and get information, because you can actually get that QR code, download it, and share it. It's a great way to get information. You can embed it. This is an embed code. So maybe if you have a Sway or you have something that you're embedding into another piece of software, another program, or you can email it. You also have the option of emailing, and I'm not pulling up my email right now. So, or you can email it. But this is, of course, those 4 different ways that you can go ahead and share this link. And that's where they're going to be able to get that preview and take your form. Getting a link to duplicate, that means that you're going to actually share the link with somebody and give them their own copy. So say I just made this form and Ann says, or Renan says, Jerry, I want that form myself because I want to edit it and actually own it and have that there. I can get a link here and copy that and give them their own form. That's going to be a duplicate copy, has nothing to do with me. They're going to actually get this form, put it in their own forms. It's their form. It's a new form. They can edit it. They own it. That's different from this Collaborate link. This collaboration link here is going to allow me to take my thing. Now that didn't work well either. I'm going to bring my view down a little bit. Here we go. This Collaborate link that we have here is going to allow me to have a link that is going to have me share and collaborate with somebody. That means that every time they get this form and they make a change, they can change questions, they can edit questions. This is something if you're working on a form together and you want to have that same responses, or you want to have access to the responses shared also. This is going to give that information. So for example, if you created this link, you sent it out up top here, and I shared it, and I sent this copy link out to collect responses. But then I also had people in my office that I needed them to also see the responses to my form. I'm going to share this Collaborate link because this is different from that top link. This is going to actually give them the information they need to be able to see the responses. You can see it, you can share it with specific people in your organization. You can have a link for all people in your organization, or you can have someone with an Office 365 work or school account. They have to have an Office 365, and it has to be that school or work account. To see the responses that I have here, I'm just going to go into my form on the top. I see questions. I see responses. It's going to show me the entire list of my responses. Okay. If I click on more details, it's just going to tell me who responded that way of those questions. Okay. Again, how I got here, I'm in questions. I'm in responses. Okay. And that's where I can view results here. That's going to show me person by person if I wanted to, and go back and see the results. But I also have have the different kinds of information here. I can see who liked it, who was going to relate, who was going to on that area as far as my different ratings. But I also have this option to open in Excel. So this is going to be where I can convert this information to Excel. I now have an Excel sheet that I can now download that I have here. I can open that file, and I now have the information in an Excel file that I want if I want to be able to use that and have that information available. These 3 ellipses here, and I know we're just about done. I can delete all the responses if I was done. You notice every time you preview and take it, that's why there's 1 response, is because I previewed and took this form. I could print a summary, or I could create a summary link. Maybe I just want to share the information with somebody. Like here, I want to just share this with Renan. Here's the results. I could actually create a summary link, and they would have a link there to do that. Can you show me what responses? Can you show me what ranking looks like on the responses page? Sure. We come down to responses. And here we had a ranking here. What question was my ranking? Explain your answer. How will you rate this session? Oh, please place in order. You know what? Let me go through and take that. Let me take that question. And I know we're at time, but I just want to answer this question too. So I'm going to go through preview, and this so you can see. So I'm going to do area 2 next. I'm going to take this question, explain my answer. Yes, or there. above average, event date, just so we can get in here and you can see what this looks like. I'm going to put options in here. And this was what it really does is it kind of puts it in a bar graph for that for you. And option 2, I'm going to submit this. Oops, I have to have 3. There we go. Oh, because my form is closed. Back. I need to actually accept the responses. There we go. Area 2. Next. I'm just going through right now. I'm in preview and I'm just taking the so that we can see what it looks like on the back end here. Once I hit submit, there we go. How many guys? Because it doesn't want to take in here. I'm going to put here responses. Oh, I've changed all my settings here. So let me get this actually where I can take this form. So you can see what happened here. I'm going to take this progress bar preview. See if I can get to this area again. Sorry about that. You can see this section coming up. I'm here, yes. Above average, put in my date. Move this over. Select my option here. Now I can hit submit. Thank you. There, now I've submitted that. So now when we come back, and that's allowed me to see that I can look at my responses and I can come through and see my responses. With that, when I put that selection in here, I can see how do you rate this session. I put that in here. You can see where I've rated that. Here's my option choices. So what it's going to do is as you take in those rank order options, it's going to create more of a bar graph for you. So you can see where people are at. Option 3 is already here. You can see who's selected, and with that, it's going to actually rate. So the more people that select option 3, it's going to measure that for them. The more people that select option 1 or 2. So that's what it's going to do in those questions. Same with the questions here in my option 1, 2, 3, or 4. It's going to start creating for you. So that. Oh, yes, no worries. As I turned in, I changed all my settings and I just went there showing settings, how they worked in forms. You can see they work really well. So I just had my form not started yet. I had it not accepting responses, so I couldn't take my own form that's there too. So yes, it will aggregate the options and make a post graph is exactly what it will do. So if I went through and actually took this again, and that's one I use a lot too, especially when I want to know, okay, what training do you want? Like what Microsoft apps do you want more training on? I will use that and be able for people to rank them, and it actually creates a graph for us to see and follow. It will pull that information together for you. Yes, great question. So yes, it is. I agree. That one is the ranking order has been one that I use a lot. Those multiple choice and be able to select out to and be able to branching is something I use a lot in forms too, that information. You are so welcome. Any questions? Anybody else have any other questions? Feel free to come off mute. Anne, do you have any more questions? John?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
Well, Jerry, thank you very much. As always, we appreciate your expertise, and we appreciate Microsoft's sharing you and Renan with us and your expertise. It's always good for us, and we appreciate it. And for those that have stayed with us, thank you for attending today's session, and we look forward to seeing you at our next session. Thanks so much.